Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Emily Finn. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We invite you to join the conversation on Getter and Rumble. It is time now to take the political pulse of America and the beat today. In a first for New Jersey, Orthodox Jewish leaders are uniting behind Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli. The endorsement, announced jointly by councils in Lakewood, Jackson, Toms River, Howell, and Manchester, marks an unprecedented show of unity from a community that's become a decisive force in New Jersey elections. The Lakewood VAD, a longtime community council, presented a single united endorsement, urging massive turnout this election season and calling for unity. The group praised Ciattarelli's positions on education, taxes, and religious freedom, and thanked former President Donald Trump for his support of Israel and the Jewish community. Joining us now to analyze this and more is the host of AVL Live and the host of the Steve Gruber Show, the one and only Steve Gruber. Good morning, Steve. This is a major...
Hello, everybody.
Good morning. This is a major endorsement. So do you see New Jersey, a longtime blue state, flipping red in the governor's race?
Well, it's going to be very close, and it's going to get right down to the wire. I think Jack Ciattarelli has all the momentum right now, clearly, for all things going on in New Jersey. A lot of things need to be fixed there. You know, the incoming Democrat, if she were to win, she says she will freeze electric rates. Gee, that's what happens when you have terrible energy policies and you bulldoze plants that produce electricity. Just bad ideas. Look, there are a variety of things going on here, but about the Jewish vote. Look, I've got some friends, some Jewish friends of mine, who had never voted Republican in their lives, ever. They all voted for Donald Trump in 2024, all of them, because they had seen a departure from the historical support of Israel. They'd seen some anti-Semitic comments from Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. You go on down the list, you can find them all over the place, and nobody pushes back on that. And so therefore, the Jewish voters, I believe, are in a mass exodus from the Democrat Party. Now, look, this is a concentrated vote in places like New York City, in New Jersey. It's less dense in other parts of the country, but the Jewish vote in a number of districts across this country could determine who controls Congress. That's a fact, because the Jewish voters are leaving en masse because they feel betrayed and abandoned by the Democrat Party. I think that shows in the polling. It shows in the evidence and the anecdotal evidence as well.
I think you make a great point there, Steve. And the reality is that Republicans' posture towards Israel and support of Israel is going to be critical. And it very well could turn some elections that people were expecting Democrats to win simply based on that one issue.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at those, I'll call them protests, but more like insurrections on college campuses, I think is a better word, where Jewish students were blocked from going to class for being what? For being Jewish. For worshiping differently than the folks there protesting or rioting or insurrecting against them. Fact of the matter is, people around this country that are Jewish or Jewish sympathizers look at that and go, wait a second. This is not who the Democrat Party is supposed to be. This is not who I support. I don't endorse students being blocked or barricaded or hiding. You saw the videos last year. Students hiding inside of libraries because there were rioting people outside threatening them with bodily harm. There's no way to run a railroad, no way to run a university. Jewish people are angry, and rightfully so. They've been treated quite poorly. And then you look at Donald Trump bringing peace to as best he can to Gaza, to supporting Israel, to go back to moving the embassy to Jerusalem, something that many presidents promised to do, but Donald Trump delivered on. This swings voters. And in places like New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, this can make a difference. In places where you have a concentration of Jewish voters, it can make a real difference. And I think it will this time around. I think it's almost inevitable.
Hey, Steve, so while we're talking about off-year elections, let me ask you about Virginia and Spanberger down there. Boy, what in the world? I mean, you got the J. Jones scandal, and she seems to have potentially survived that. There's been other things. I don't think she's a good candidate at all, and yet Winsome Sears can't, I don't know. I mean, she can't budge her from that 7 to 10 point lead down in Virginia. Curious what you make of that. And also the Prop 50 in California, whether or not it's going to pass. It looks like it very well could in terms of the redistricting out there in California.
Well, let's start with Virginia, David. All right, fair enough. Let's start with there. Winsome Sears, legal immigrant from the nation of Haiti, a military veteran. The current lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia. And yet, Barack Obama, who chided black men for not voting for a black woman in 2024, has endorsed the liberal white candidate. The NAACP, an organization based on black Christian men, primarily when it was started, now endorsing the liberal white candidate. It's bizarre. The NAACP and Barack Obama both lining up behind this liberal, far-left white woman, and not the legitimate black woman who's a military veteran, the lieutenant governor, a person who's incredibly bright. If you ever hear her speak, she's incredibly smart and tough. And they're lining up behind the liberal white Democrat. Tells you something about this whole thing with Kamala Harris last year, doesn't it? It was all bogus. It has nothing to do with whether she was a black woman. It's just throwing the race card whenever it's convenient for your political cause. It's been shown for what it is. It's a fraud. It's a fraud. The NAACP, they're not what they used to be. They're of little value to a lot of black people in this country. Barack Obama, instigator-in-chief. He's not there to create unity. He's there to create division, and he always sides with a radical leftist candidate. Those are the facts. Now, Prop 50, it could pass. Don't think it matters. Here's why. I think that Supreme Court case involving Louisiana, speaking of race, is the single most important case in front of the Supreme Court this time around for this reason. Louisiana challenged racial decisions for congressional districts. If that happens and the Supreme Court sides with the state of Louisiana, which I believe they will, because you cannot draw districts based on race. It's unconstitutional. So therefore, that goes 6-3 in favor of Louisiana. That's 12 seats to the Republicans in places like Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Louisiana, of course, plus some other states possibly. You cannot draw districts based on race, because if you did, we're the primary Hispanic districts. More Hispanics in this country than black voters, and so why don't they get their own district? You see, this just doesn't work. You can't make decisions on college applications and entrance, exams based on race. You can't do it for congressional districts. I think the Supreme Court has a very clear decision to make here. I think they do, and I think it swings the race. Now, having said all that, Prop 50 will be a wash with Texas. You got Virginia doing it now, Indiana doing it now, North Carolina, Missouri. I think the Republicans come out ahead, net 12 to 15 seats on the whole redistricting process when it's over.
Steve, President Trump's trip to Asia has been dominating the headlines this morning, so I definitely want to get your take on all of this as well. He is in Japan now, had a very productive meeting with the Prime Minister. Let's take a quick look and get your reaction.
This woman is a winner. So, we've become very close friends all of a sudden, because their stock market today and our stock market today hit an all-time high. That means we're doing something right. But the cherished alliance between the United States and Japan is one of the most remarkable relationships in the entire world.
Steve, usually in the mornings when I'm doing my hair and makeup, I watch you on Real America's Voice. But President Trump,
I appreciate that.
He was the one live this morning. What did you think of that meeting?
He was live on the program this morning. I appreciate that. Let me jump to something that the Democrats have been saying falsely for the last few weeks, and it's important because the deal with Japan offsets this. They talk about farmers and soybeans not being sold to China, which is true. China hasn't bought a bean since May. And so the Democrats are like, well, Trump's tariffs are destroying the soybean market. Not true. In fact, the 52-week low for soybeans for farming in America was December of 2024. I think that Joe Biden was still president then, if memory serves. Mine does, his doesn't. The fact of the matter is Japan's now picking up $550 billion in beans. Biodiesel is being explored heavily. And the price of beans today is 6% higher than it was December of 2024. Donald Trump is going to get around China. And every farmer that I talk to, I know a number of soybean farmers, they want to be away from China. They don't want to be, beholden to the whims of the Chinese Communist Party, whether China buys or doesn't buy. They want to get rid of that. They want to cut the cord. They want Japan to buy. They want Vietnam to buy, and Korea, and biodiesel, and all of these things. And Donald Trump just got part of a deal, $550 billion in bean sales to Japan. It's all important. He's resetting the financial systems of the world. And yes, we set all-time records on the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P yesterday. Same thing in Japan. Gold is coming back down below $4,000. There is a realignment, if you will. And Donald Trump is leading that. And so other big deals that came out, Westinghouse, $100 billion in investment for nuclear power in America. That was one of the announcements he made this morning. So it's one after another after another. They want to talk about a ballroom. I want to talk about America going forward. That's where we are.
All right, Steve, in terms of getting America to go forward, we need to get the government back open. The ongoing shutdown, it's getting on my nerves. I'm tired of talking about it, but it is a reality. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, I'm sorry to editorialize there, but I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. Go ahead. You were going to say?
Nobody likes it when Terrence is upset. Nobody likes it when Terrence is upset, all right? I'm just going to put it out there. We don't want you upset over the shutdown. Here's the thing, Terrence, think about this. Who would have thought a couple years ago that the voice of reason for the Democrat Party would be John Fetterman? But here we are. Here we are. John Fetterman saying we have got to stop this. This is wrong. And look, Obamacare is a failure. It was always going to be a failure. The Affordable Care Act was never about affordability or care. It was an insurance scheme designed to do one thing: get us to a single-payer health care system. It failed because it was supposed to fail. And now the Democrats are doing exactly what you'd expect them to do: blame Republicans for their failed policies and try to make Americans scared. So they fearmonger of the failure of their own policy and blame Donald Trump. That's the game being played. I think most Americans can figure it out.
Yeah, here's the thing. The status of the Democrat Party when John Fetterman is the voice of reason. I mean, that says everything you need to know about the Democrats. Hey, Steve, before we let you go, President Trump recently shot down these rumors that he's planning to run as a vice presidential candidate in 2028. Basically a backhanded way to secure a third term in office. Here he is addressing that. Take a look.
One theory on how you might try to serve a third term is that you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House or the White House counsel to your legal position?
No, you'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't do that. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not. It wouldn't be right.
Let me be on record to say, love President Trump to death. Third term, absolutely not. I think that's a long-term gamble. Gosh, please let's not let that happen just for the sake of the United States Constitution. That's what I'm talking about. Love President Trump, but not this, guys, not this.
Well, the fact of the matter is he pointed out in that conversation he's got two really great people with him that can both be his heir, be it JD Vance, who is leading in the polling, but Marco Rubio shown himself to be a very effective Secretary of State, really done the heavy lifting of getting peace deals all over the world in coordination with President Trump and Steve Witkoff. So this is all just a bunch of noise and nonsense. Donald Trump is not running for another term. He'd be 82 years old. He's not going to be vice president. Can you imagine him being vice president?
No,
he can't imagine it either. Come on, being second in charge? No, that's not Donald Trump's deal. He is a starting quarterback, not a backup. That's a fact. And with JD and Marco in the wings, the Republicans got a pretty good bench. They're all right.
Yeah. Steve Gruber, always a pleasure to see you in the mornings. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, guys.
Steve.
I watch you, too, when I do my hair and makeup. FYI, Steve, just so you know.
I won't tell you what I'm doing when I watch you.
Everyone loves watching Steve in the morning. All right, coming up, California Democrat Eric Swalwell is fuming over President Trump's White House ballroom project. Now he wants all future Democrats running for office to pledge to demolish it. That's next when American Sunrise returns.